Colombian President Gustavo Petro attended an event in Bogota with the National Liberation Army, guerrillas, and civil organizations to mark the entry to force of the bilateral ceasefire. Senegal announced that if Ecowas declared intervention in Niger, it will participate in the sending of troops. Palestinian Foreign Minister Riad Al-Maliki regretted on Thursday that the Palestinian issue is outside the priorities of the international community. Hello, welcome to From the South. I'm Ana Marrero from the teleSUR headquarters in Caracas, Venezuela. We'll begin with the news. Stay with us. Colombian President Gustavo Petro attended an event in Bogota with the National Liberation Army, guerrillas, and civil organizations to mark the entry into force of the bilateral ceasefire. President Gustavo Petro took advance of the participation agreements attended by the main ELN commanders with the government's peace negotiating table in Bogota to send a strong message to the armed group. He advocated for total peace and added weapons are nothing but instruments of death. Colombian government chief peace negotiator Oti Patiño highlighted the creation of the commissions for social participation with a view to build peace.
First time in the history of this armed conflict that has lasted for almost 60 years, the state, the Colombian society, the international community, and the National Liberation Army have come together to undergo an intense process of cooperation in order to put an end to this bloody confrontation and build peace. At this point, there is not a single home in the country that hasn't been impacted by this war.
Patiño reaffirmed that they will not leave the negotiating table until the end of the armed conflict is reached.
We have the profound conviction that this indeed is possible, that it is possible to end the armed conflict. The 6-decade armed political confrontation between the Colombian state and the ELN must end. We won't leave the table until we put an end to the armed conflict, and we are going to combine speed and discipline to reach the final agreement within a reasonable time.
The head of the ELN peace delegation, Pablo Beltrán, emphasized that the social outbreak brought about a government of change that is committed to all Colombians.
When I say mandate is to obey it, then a mandate for change was established at the cost of many efforts and sacrifices. It had a war treatment that should not happen again. That is part of the political solution, to respect social protest. Then that mandate for change that established the social outburst was taken up by the government presided by Gustavo Petro. That commits him, and that social outburst that established that mandate commits the ELN. That is, we understand the yearning and the dreams of change of those demonstrations in the streets, and we make it our own and have taken it to this dialogue table.
The president of FEDEGAN, the Colombian Federation of Livestock Farmers, Jose Felix Labrouille, assured during his speech that peace is not measured by the agreement signed, but by its results.
It's a key moment in the history of the country, but it will be even more so if, in 180 days, we meet again to extend the bilateral national temporary ceasefire agreement that begins today throughout the national territory. It has not been easy. To get this far, we have signed 11 agreements and 9 ceasefire protocols. But peace is not measured by signatures, but by results.
During his intervention, Colombian President Gustavo Petro referred to violence in the country and its causes.
The violence that we are experiencing today is the consequence of the violent attempt to put an end to the revolution in progress. That is to say, to put an end to this concept that land has a social function. The violence in Colombia continues to revolve around land.
The Colombian head of state also congratulated the National Liberation Army for what he called its historic stance.
a congratulation is needed. Never in contemporary history has the ELN reached this position. To speak out face to face in the heart of Colombia. Without ceasing to be part of the ELN, without weapons, before the diversity of Colombia, wide and deep, before the Colombian state with which it has waged a war that dates back to 1964.
Let's take a very short break, but remember you can now follow us on our TikTok account teleSUR English, where you'll be able to see news in different formats, news updates, and more. Stay tuned for more news. Welcome back from the South. Former U.S. President Donald Trump pledged not guilty to leading a criminal conspiracy to change the outcome of the 2020 elections as he appeared in a Washington court on Thursday. The 77-year-old Republican and front-runner for the 2024 presidential elections told Judge Maxilara Upadhyaya that he was pleading not guilty to the 4 counts against him. Prosecutor alleged Trump and 6 others unidentified individuals conspired to alter the outcome of the 2020 election. The Mexican Foreign Ministry informed that in the last 24 hours, 2 lifeless bodies have been found in the border with Texas. One of them trapped by a plane by the government of Greg Biot. The bios were placed in early July by the order of Republican Texas Governor Alano with burned wire barriers in order to block the passage of migrants from the Mexican territory. Mexican President Andrés Manuel López Obrador said in late July that the measure is a provocation to violate the country's sovereignty. His government has expressed concern about the impact of these measures on human rights and personal safety of migrants. In the United States, the Department of Justice filed a civil lawsuit to prevent the Texas government from placing additional barriers and removing existing ones. In the United Kingdom, on Thursday, a group of mothers and their children gathered in Downing streets to protest against the government's decision to grant more than 100 new oil and gas licenses in the North Sea. The demonstrations came after the UK Prime Minister Rishi Sunak has backed plans to drill new fossil fuel fields near the Shetland island of Scotland, as well as other sites in the nearby North Sea. This prospect has enraged environmental campaigners who accuse the British leader of lacking conviction in his climate policies and playing politics with the issue as he prepares for the next year's general elections amid a cost of living crisis.
I'm here for him and for my daughter. We're with a group of moms and dads and parents and carers who are just horrified that the Prime Minister is issuing new oil and gas licenses and torpedoing green policies when we could be investing in renewables and having cheaper energy that actually protects our planet for the future.
On Thursday in Japan, a new demonstration was held in rejection of the discharge of polluted water into the Pacific Ocean. Protesters rallied outside the headquarters of the Tokyo Electric Power Company, the operator of the crumbling nuclear plant. They claim that the wastewater from the Fukushima Daiichi nuclear power plant has come into contact with melted nuclear fuel fragments and will ultimately affect seafood consumption, fishermen's livelihood, and consumers' welfare.
The Japanese government is deceiving the Japanese people. The nuclear contaminated ward at the Fukushima Daiichi nuclear power station, though the government called it 3D ward, was contaminated water that has contacted with melted nuclear fuel fragments. For domestic consumption in Japan, seafood will become unsafe and no one will buy it, and the lives of fishermen will become very difficult. The same goes for consumers. I have children and grandchildren. I don't want them to eat unsafe food.
In Japan, Typhoon Kanin hit Okinawa Prefecture on Wednesday, leaving at least 1 dead and 11 injured. The disease was an 80-year-old man who was trapped in a garage, collapsed by the strong winds, and preached in the hospital. The Japan Fire and Disaster Management Agency said that 11 people were injured by both the winds and the floods. The local power company reported power outages in 210,000 homes. However, authorities called on the peoples of Okinawa to be on the alert for landslides and flooding due to the heavy rains caused by the typhoon. The Indonesian government on Thursday sent emergency aid to the drought-stricken province of Papua. Indonesian authorities report that in total 17.1 tons of aid has sent to the impoverished region of Puncari, including thousands of instant food, soap, parcels, and hundreds of tens of blankets. On Tuesday, authorities in Papua province report that deaths of 6 people, including a baby, from starvation and dehydration, while thousands have been left without water since June in the wake of the drought. Let's take a last break, but before we invite you to visit our YouTube channel at teleSUR English, where you'll be able to see news in different formats, news updates, and more. Stay tuned for more news. Welcome back. Senegal's Foreign Minister Riad Al-Maliki said on Thursday that if there is a military intervention in Niger by the West African region bloc, Ecowas, her country will send troops. The high Senegalese official told reporters during a government press briefing in Dakar that there have been one coup too many in the region and cites Senegal's international commitments. The regional bloc threatens to use military force if President Mohamed Bazoum wasn't released from the house arrest and reinstated by next Sunday, August 6th. The military chief of the bloc member countries met in Nigeria on Wednesday for 3 days of consultations. Nigeria is the 4th bloc members of the undergo a push since 2020.
Ecowas thought it was time to put an end to it. Now, yes, to answer the question, definitely the Senegalese military, for all these reasons, will be going. As I speak, the chiefs of staff of the Ecowas member states are meeting to see what the modus operandi would be once the political decision has been taken at the highest level and at community level. So yes, our soldiers will go. How they will go, they are still in the process of consulting each other on that.
On Thursday, Senegal government said the indictment and detention of opposition leader Ousmane Sonko and the dissolution of his party were justified because he had allegedly formed insurrection and promoted violence. Sonko has been held in detention since Monday on charges including fomenting insurrection, undermining state security, criminal association with a terrorist body, and other crimes. Shortly after his indictment, the Interior Minister announced that PASTEF will be dissolved, accusing it of causing unrest that has led to the destruction and the loss of lives.
Since 2021, you have seen a number of calls for insurrection, a promotion of violence that has never existed in Senegal. Between 2021 and 2023, PASTEF, its organizations and its calls for insurrection have caused more deaths than in the entire political history of Senegal. From 1960 to 2023, there have never been so many deaths or so many demonstrations. The dissolution of a party is not linked to a lawsuit. It's an administrative authorization. First of all, it's a declaration system. You declare your association, you have obligations, and if you don't respect them, the administrative authority has the right to withdraw this authorization. So that's what you mean by dissolution.
The UN Integrated Transition Assistance Mission in Sudan, UNITAMS, declared on Thursday its concern about the impact of the fighting between the Rapid Support Forces and the Sudanese Armed Forces on the civilian in Darfur, Sudan. UN spokesman said the UN mission strongly condemns the indiscriminate attacks on civilians and public facilities by the RSF and allied militias, especially in the town of Surbai, 45 kilometers north of the Yelniya in West Darfur. On the humanitarian front, the Office for the Coordination of Humanitarian Affairs facilitated the cross-border delivery of food by the World Food Programme from Chad to West Darfur.
Humanitarian Affairs tells us that today it facilitated cross-border deliveries of food items by the World Food Programme from Chad into West Darfur. This is one of the parts of Sudan facing high levels of food insecurity. In the coming weeks, UN agencies and partners are hoping to provide additional assistance, especially food, nutrition, health, water, hygiene, and sanitation supplies. The Undersecretary General for Humanitarian Affairs, Martin Griffiths, said that cross-border access into the Darfur region represents a key milestone, as the UN seeks to access all hard-to-reach areas in Sudan and provide critical humanitarian assistance to people in need wherever.
Zimbabwe's President Emerson Mnangagwa inaugurated on Thursday a Chinese-funded power station that he says will go a long way in easing power shortages ahead of the national election. The 80-year-old president, who seeks to be re-elected for a second term in August 23rd, also opened a coal mine on Monday and a clinic on Wednesday before heading to the northwestern town of Haue to officially launch the 600 MW coal-fired power plant on Thursday. Analysts expect a tense vote later this month aimed at crackdown on the opposition and a disaffected population battling hyperinflation, poverty, and high unemployment.
Development for any modernization in developing countries, energy is a critical enabler for our industrialization. So today, I'm wondering, I came here in 2018 and this was just planned when we did the groundbreaking. And I can't even remember where we were standing. Well, first and foremost, we are under sanctions. And we as the Second Republic, we have not put our heads in the sand and said because there are sanctions, because the intention of those who put us under sanctions was that they wanted us to collapse. So we decided that we must look, one, into our own domestic resources for us to survive. Secondly, relate to our traditional friends, supporters in our quest to leapfrog alongside the other developing countries. And this we have succeeded.
Palestinian Foreign Minister Riad Al-Maliki regretted on Thursday that the Palestinian issue is outside the priorities of the international community.
Administration that did not bring its own peace plan. So what that really tells you that, you know, their priority is not us. Their priority, you know, it's Ukraine, Russia, Ukraine, Russia, Ukraine, Russia, and after that it's China, 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 China. So where we stand, you know, I don't know. You know, at the end of that list, I don't know even if that's really the case. Biden.
The minister also welcomed the willingness of a global player such as China to mediate in the Israeli-Palestinian peace process.
China has made their position very clear when it comes to Israel-Palestine. They made position very clear in support of the full membership of the state of Palestine to the UN system. And, you know, for that reason, you know, we appreciate very much the position of China, and we'd like to see China, you know, betterly involved, you know, in such process, you know.
Riad Al-Maliki also commented on Saudi Arabia's conditions for restoring relations with Israel, including the end of the Israeli occupation and the materialization of the state of Palestine.
Arabia has put different conditions regarding normalization. One of these conditions is really, you know, the end of Israeli occupation and the materialization of the state of Palestine. If that's really the case, then that's really very important. I hope that the Saudis will stick to that position and you know, not to yield to any kind of pressure, intimidation coming from the Biden administration or any other.
We have come to the end of this news brief, but you can find these and many other stories on our website at telesurenglish.net. You can also see us on our socials, from Facebook and Twitter, and on Instagram as well. For TeleSUR English and from the South, I'm Ana Marrero. Thank you for watching.